Hello again, and in this lesson, we will be looking at the report. So this is an example of a report that has been produced. We're going to step you through the report so you know how to structure your report. Now, like we said in a different module, the assessors of the ICE would actually take your report apart and look for evidence of all the attributes and sub-attributes. So right from attribute 1 to attribute 7, and they will step through the different sub-attributes to look for examples. So one thing you can do is, as you write your report, make sure you put the attributes or the sub attributes in parentheses. So put them in brackets as you go through so that the assessors know exactly where to look for evidence of the different attributes. Okay, so let's step through this report. If you look at the very top, the candidate has stated their membership number. Obviously, this has been taken out, and you just have a good head in there, so telling you that it is the ICE Chartered Professional Review. There is a table of content, list of figures, list of acronyms. Okay, now I'm just going to scroll down to the very end so you see how the appendix section looks like. So I go down to the very end. These are the appendices. I've taken out the drawings for privacy reasons, but just to let you know, these are the sort of information required. So there are about 10 documents or drawings. There's a site location, Appendix 1. There is the general building plan, Appendix 2. Appendix 3 has the building department submission report, the cover page. The Appendix 4 is design moment from wind tunnel tests, and then it continues down to the very last appendix, which is Appendix 10, technical competent person qualification. Now, the evidence that you're providing in the appendix has to be documents, reports that have been produced by yourself, not by your team or your colleague. So this has to be 100% your work. That's the thing to note. If you're providing any evidence here, which is not your work, then it will be frowned upon by the ICE assessors. So make sure you put in something that you did yourself. So let's go back to the top of this report and continue. So, introduction. And the introduction just basically gives a history of the candidate's career. Project 1. Project 1 lists the title of Project 1, so Super Commercial Real Estate Project. Section 2.1, background and description. Section 2.2, your responsibilities. And then when you go to section 2.3, this is when it starts to talk about the technical and managerial aspect. Section 2.4 is attribute 3, which is commercial ability. Section 2.5 is attribute 4, which is safety environment. And section 2.6 is on sustainability. The candidate has not created a separate section for communication because the candidate has been communicating during the whole life cycle of the project. Section 3 is project 2, which is the mixed use development project. 3.1 is the description, 3.2 the responsibilities, 3.3 site management, 3.4 improvement of productivity, 3.5 management of design, 3.6 is on commercial attributes, so that's attribute 3. 3.7 is health and safety, attribute 4. 3.8 is sustainable development, that's attribute 5. And the candidate has created a separate section for professional commitment, and that is because the candidate has been acting professionally for the whole of his career. So he created a separate section where he talked about how he shows professional commitment. And then the candidate concludes in section 5. So this is what the table of content looks like. If you go to the actual report, so list of figures. So if you've got figures, you put them here. Acronyms. So this is very important. All acronyms used in the report must be mentioned and described. When you use an acronym for the very first time, you must tell us what exactly the acronym stands for. Make sure you're not putting in an acronym without describing that acronym. If you've defined the acronym for the first time, then it's fine to use the acronym for the remainder of your report. This goes for your presentation as well. So in your presentation, make sure you tell us what the attribute stands for, the acronym stands for. Introduction. So this is a very, very important section. So the introduction gives us a history of the candidate's career, and it shows how the candidate has progressed, all the promotions the candidate has received, the additional responsibility. So if you look at this first paragraph, it's saying that in 2014, the candidate graduated from University of Strathclyde with an MSc in civil engineering. I started my professional journey by joining ABC Construction as a graduate civil engineer. And the candidate tells us the projects that they worked on and their responsibility. So in this role, I was responsible for producing project designs, supervising substructure works, ensuring adherence to building regulations, and proposing remedial actions when necessary. The candidate goes on to tell us what experience they gathered. So this experience helped to develop practical engineering skills and solidified my understanding of engineering principles and regulations in my country. The candidate continues with another role. In 2016, the candidate acted as a structural engineer. So obviously, the candidate is no longer a graduate. So this is showing promotion, additional responsibility. In 2018, the candidate started their role as a project manager. It continues in 2022. The candidate worked as a general project manager. So this is the introduction. In 2025, the candidate got their most recent role, a senior position, so added responsibility as a senior structural engineer, and the candidate gives a summary of what they have done. So this is what the introduction looks like. So this is very important. This gives the assessors a very, very good picture as to what the candidate has been up to since they started their career, the sort of projects they've worked on. And from this, the assessors will start to create a picture in their mind. Now we go to section 2, project 1, so the super commercial real estate project. You start by giving a background and description under 2.1. So this tells us exactly what the project is all about. It tells us the company. It talks about the budget, so how much was involved. Approximately $2 billion worth of project. It also describes the site. So what exactly did the candidate work on? It was two structures, 48-story and a 50-story building. So by reading this project background and description, we know exactly what the candidate was up to. And then section 2.2 is responsibilities. So what exactly did you do? I was responsible for overseeing the schematic and detailed design of superstructures, as well as conducting structural capacity checks on the parent structures for building department submission. So this is very important. Okay, it tells us exactly what the candidate did. And under section 2.3, it talks about the design phase. Now, one thing you should mention in your report is to let us know which phases of the project were you involved in. Were you involved in the whole life cycle of the project? Were you involved in only the detailed design and construction, for instance? Were you involved in the testing bit? So tell us the phases of the project for which you contributed. So under 2.3.1, this is where the candidate starts to talk about the technical bits of their project and gives us indication as to what is coming. Under section 2.3.2, the candidate talks about the engineering challenges that they encountered and their solution. So this is very important because the candidate, the assessors are looking for examples of where you solved engineering challenges. They're looking for independent decision making. They're looking for your engineering judgments. They want to see where you carried out researches on your own to determine the root cause, and if you had any gap in knowledge, they want to see how exactly you were able to extend your knowledge. Did you carry out researches? Did you conduct tests? Did you consult textbooks? Did you go for additional study? Did you consult with subject matter experts in your industry or within your company to extend your knowledge so you can solve the challenge? So they are looking for those evidence. So the candidate has put that information on that 2.3.2. So you can see this paragraph. To tackle this issue, I proposed implementing a double transfer plate system. And the candidate gives us some information about transfer plates. So it says transfer plates provide a mechanism for redirecting gravity loads when a vertical supporting member is interrupted. And then there's more information under the detailed design. So the candidate was able to give us an example of a software that they use, how they used the software, and what exactly they were able to do with the software. So you can see this sentence here saying, this analysis provided me with a clear understanding of how wind forces were distributed across the structural elements, ensuring an efficient and effective design. Under the commercial ability, again, this is very, very important. Attribute 3, the candidate gives evidence of how exactly they complied with attribute 3. And then under health and safety, this is very, very important because if you do not provide sufficient evidence under health and safety, you cannot pass. So this is the deal maker or the deal breaker. Now you would note that the candidate has put the attribute in parentheses. So this way the assessors know exactly what is contained under this section and they know which section to go to if they are looking for evidence of a particular attribute. This paragraph, for instance, has got examples of attributes 1, which is understanding and practical application of engineering, attribute 2, which is management and leadership, and attribute 6, which is interpersonal skills and communication. Now, this report will be provided to you so you can go through it and use it to inspire you as you produce your own report. So the report continues. You have section 2.5.3, environmental protection. Obviously, this is talking about what the candidate did with respect to There are actually 3 attributes here. There is the management and leadership, health and safety, and interpersonal skills and communication. And then 2.6 is on sustainable development. So you have to mention the UN SDGs, so the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And under sustainability, we are looking for financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, and social sustainability. So the candidate has provided a very good example of where using pulverized fly ash has reduced CO2 emissions by 30% and also helped to reduce byproduct waste. So this is a very good example on the both financial sustainability and environmental sustainability. And then we go to the second project, which is on section 3. So project 2, the mixed use development project. Again, the candidate starts with a project description in section 3.1. So by reading this section, the assessors know exactly what the project is all about. It also talks about the cost. So it's 400 million US dollar worth of budget. So the figures have been taken away, but as you progress, make sure you put in your figures so that the assessors can have a good understanding of what they are looking at. Make sure you check with your company, obviously, so that you do not breach any confidentiality agreement. Check with your sponsors within your company and make sure that they are happy for you to share the pictures that you plan to use in your reports. For section 3.2, it talks about the responsibilities and key project stakeholders. Site management under section 3.3. And here the candidate is just talking about some of the challenges that they faced on the project and what exactly they did to overcome that challenge or those challenges. Improvement of productivity, management of design and build projects, commercial and contract administration under section 3.6, variation order management, so that's plenty of commercial. 3.7 is on site safety, health and environment. And it continues. Sustainable development under section 3.8. And then section 4, the candidate has created this section specifically for professional commitment. So section 4.1 is attending seminars and events. The candidate has attended a few events by the ICE and also the IMEC-E. So this is very good. The candidate also attended safety training courses. Make sure that you have examples of attending health and safety. I would recommend, wherever possible, that you attend at least one health and safety training every quarter, at least one. So if you're attending, let's say it's 4 in a year, spread across the year, then that's a very good example. If you're not attending at least 4 health and safety training, then that's a problem. So you must be attending refresher courses or new courses, at least 4 every year. Engagement in technical discussions, professional standards. So the candidate has read and fully understands and abides by the ICE Code of Conduct, and the candidate performs CPD. Conclusion, very important. So the candidate goes through the 7 attributes and gives a summary of what they have done. So if you look at the first one, attribute 1, understanding and practical application of engineering, the candidate says, I developed new engineering techniques, specified requirements, identified challenges, discovered opportunities, and implemented effective solutions across various project life cycles. So that's very, very good. The candidate tells us that their work was spread across different life cycles. They identified challenges, discovered opportunities, implemented solutions. That's the main report, and these is the appendix section I talked about earlier on. So appendix 1, site location; appendix 2, the building plan; appendix 3, building department submission reports, cover page; appendix 4, design moment from wind tunnel tests; appendix 5, submission letter from contractor; appendix 6, outgoing letter for project review. This continues down to appendix 10, and like I said earlier on, this has to be your product, so things you did yourself, not what other people have done. If there's any letter, then that letter should be addressed to you. So you could have a letter from yourself to someone else, or you could have a letter from the contractor addressed to you. So this is the report. It's going to be provided for you to use, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in subsequent modules. Bye bye.